Hey everyone, I'm back with a new video, so let's begin. Also, before we begin, join my Discord server, link in the bio. Third POV. As all of that was going on, Nezu was back at UA communicating with the government. He was able to get them to agree to issue an education order for the entire prefecture where the fight was going on, since he had gotten warned by Eraserhead that it was All For One that attacked the camp with some giant of a monster. Eraserhead was able to get back in contact with Nezu after getting far away enough from the camp where the jamming was going on, and the students were heading to the nearest place outside of the prefecture like everyone else was doing, since it was deemed unsafe to stay in the prefecture by the government. The government did order all of the top pro heroes to head towards the site in the chance that All Might and Raiden lost the fight, since they would need to try to keep the villain from moving on to destroy things, as the government knew Raiden was stronger than All Might, who was retiring soon. Nezu then turned the channels on the TV in the staff room and kept searching for any news network that had a helicopter in the air yet, and after switching from some channels he was able to find it finally. Nezu sat in the office and watched the fight happen, as All Might had already arrived before Nezu found the channel. All Might was fighting against All For One while Raiden was dealing with the giant of a monster that All For One had brought to the fight. Nezu watched and waited for how the battle would turn out when the door to the staff room opened and Gran Torino walked in. "Surprised to see you here. I figured you would somehow try to get there," Nezu said without turning around again, and Gran Torino just sighed. "I know my limits. By the time I get there the fight will be over with and I won't be able to do anything about it," Gran Torino said, and sat down next to Nezu as they both watched the fight. Everyone in the entire country and even in the world was now watching the fight that some were describing as a fight between gods due to the overwhelming power that each individual in the fight was displaying. As everyone watched, we switched back to the actual fight to hear the battle going on with the screams from each opponent. "Getting tired, aren't we, All Might? Soon you will fail to defeat me, and at that moment I go back to killing your protege, but don't worry. You won't die until after I display his corpse to you," All For One said as he launched a massive attack at All Might. All Might dodged it and went to get close to All For One, who kept doing him. All Might knew what All For One was doing. He was waiting for his time limit to come to an end to win the battle easily, which pissed All Might off greatly. As these two opponents were fighting, we could see Raiden and Gigantomachia going at it. Izuku was bleeding a bit, but he wasn't getting wounds like he was before when he had to deal with both of the opponents. Now he was winning his battle, as Gigantomachia was starting to stockpile the wounds that Izuku kept putting on the giant. Sadly, things don't go his way, as Izuku heard a scream from his side and saw All Might had been hit by a large blow that sent him into the mountainside, or what remained of it. All Might still had his form, but he was clearly nearing his limit. "I need to end this," Izuku thought as he gritted his teeth and was preparing for a large-scale attack. Izuku went up into the air high near the clouds and started to gather as much lighting as he could from One For All and from the natural lighting that had been going quite often due to the high electrical current in the air due to the fight. As Izuku could feel the pure energy radiating off of him now due to taking in the lighting into his body and blade, he kicked the air with the float quirk on and sped down towards the ground. Gigantomachia prepared himself for the attack, but the thing was Izuku wasn't aiming for the giant. No, as Izuku came closer to the ground he changed his directly using float and went straight at the back of All For One, who got caught off guard due to the sudden change. All Might saw it as well and jumped away in time as Izuku landed the attack right onto All For One's powered-up arm, but Izuku could see it cutting into the man's arm as All For One screamed. Gigantomachia though heard this and came charging, but All Might got in the giant's path and stopped him long enough for Izuku to finish his attack. Seconds later, the entire area was filled with lighting that branched off from the attack, and All For One was sent into the ground, causing a large crater to be formed due to the power behind the blow. All Might backed away from the giant, and Izuku jumped towards All Might as they waited for the dust to clear to see if All For One received any damage from the attack, and he did. As Gigantomachia cleared the dust, they saw All For One on the ground without his left arm. "You bastard!" All For One yelled out due to his missing arm, which got cauterized shut due to the heat from the lighting on Izuku's blade, which meant he couldn't regenerate the missing arm. Both Izuku and All Might knew this would be their shot to ending the fight and charged off as All Might prepared the final move he could do since he was at his limit. "My boy, this is it for me. One move left and I can't do anything else, so help me get him prepared for the hit," All Might said, and Izuku nodded his head as he sent all of his black whips out, grabbing Gigantomachia and All For One. Izuku pulled All For One closer to them while sending the giant away from them. As All For One realized what was going on, it was too late, as All Might called his attack out and out everything he had in it. "United States of Smash," All Might yelled out as he slammed his fist against All For One's face as Izuku released the black whip, so the man only took the blow. As All Might pushed forward, All For One slammed into the ground with a large crater forming under him. A mini tornado was created from the attack, which sent the news helicopters flying away a bit, but the dust settled. In the center, All For One's mask was broken completely and he was knocked out from what they could tell of his breathing. Gigantomachia though wasn't done as he screamed out and came charging, but All Might was done as he dropped into his skinny form already. Everyone was shocked, but they couldn't think about it due to the monster that was still standing. Izuku, though, had started to prepare his own attack as All Might finished his. Overall, it was similar to the United States of Smash, but a bit more electric as Izuku jumped towards Gigantomachia, who tried to attack Izuku in his blind rage but missed as Izuku came down with lighting around his entire body and slammed his fist straight in the side of Gigantomachia's head as he screamed out his attack and pushed it forward as hard as he could. Lighting smite, Izuku called out, and as it connected and pushed forward, bolts of lighting came off of Izuku and traveled across Gigantomachia's body. Gigantomachia's body tensed up due to the electrical current that was flowing straight in his body since Izuku landed the blow before Gigantomachia hardened himself. This led to him being shocked like he was hit by a massive lighting taser. And the force behind the punch pushed the giant to the side and into another mountain they were near, causing the giant to bring the entire thing down with him. Everyone was silent as they waited to see what was the result, and as the dust cleared they got the result as the giant appeared to be down for the count as the giant was not moving and eyes closed, though he was clearly still alive since he was breathing. After a few seconds, the giant shrunk down suddenly and was in a much smaller form now. Izuku, though, didn't care as he wanted to get to All Might and make sure All for One stayed down. As Izuku arrived, he saw All for One had woken up and was trying to stand, but Izuku stopped him from leaving as he landed a punch straight to the man's back and secured him in black whips to ensure he didn't run away. "You're not escaping, All for One," Izuku said as the man fell back to sleep due to the shock from Izuku's punch and having no energy to fight anymore. Izuku looked at All Might and found him smiling. "We did it, Pops. We defeated him once and for all," Izuku said with a smile as he could hear the sirens coming from police and others. "Indeed we did, but until all of the League is captured we can't know for sure all of the Namu is gone for good, as they still have Kirigiri, which they may try to break All for One out, which would be troublesome," All Might said, and Izuku nodded his head. Now as this came to an end, back in a bar in a villain-infested area you could hear screaming and cursing at All Might's and Raiden's name. This was all coming from none other than Shigaraki, who was pissed about his master's defeat. His master had promised him he would win since he was taking some powerful follower, but the giant and his master had just lost. "Calm yourself, Shigaraki, or are you going to keep acting like this even though the master is gone now? You must carry his will forward," Kirigiri said, and Shigaraki calmed down slightly, but listening into this was one doctor of All for One who was displeased with the results that happened. He was also displeased with Shigaraki as he didn't believe the boy was fit to become All for One's successor, and now he was sure he wouldn't be helping the boy out anymore as he needed to figure out how to get All for One out of prison since this wasn't according to plans. All for One went out with Gigantomachia since he needed to deal with the 9th user, but All might screw things up again, thought the doctor, who could do nothing more than plan for now and work on the Namus. As we shift away from this, we can now find All Might and Raiden being taken to a hospital in the closest major city since the local hospitals wouldn't be able to deal with their wounds like the major ones could. They were both riding in the same ambulance since neither wanted to separate currently. Seems we changed fate since Sir Night-Eye's stupid vision hasn't come true at any point after this. You're no longer an active pro hero, so it wouldn't make sense for him to try to get you to retire early before you already retired, Izuku said, and All Might nodded his head as he could only agree that Sir Night-Eye's vision had been broken. In all honesty, All Might knew if he was still fated to die then it didn't really matter to him since everyone has to die one day. The fact that All for One was now being imprisoned with his powerful bodyguard, which All Might didn't know of before, meant that All Might was at peace. He wanted to live as long as he could to be around for his boy, but he was no longer the pro hero All Might, but instead just Toshinori Yagi now. Both of them just sat there in silence as they wait to arrive at the hospital, where they knew they would get an earful from Recovery Girl most likely. Though Izuku did check in with Eraserhead and see how the students and Koda were doing. Overall, the class was scared of what happened, but they all were alive. Koda wanted to visit Izuku, which Izuku told Eraserhead it was fine if the Wild Pussycats could bring him, since he didn't know if he would be released from the hospital that night or the following day, since his last major attack did cause some self-injury. Eraserhead said he would let them know and did alert them that Gran Torino would be heading to the hospital as well, which Izuku said that it was fine. Izuku though looked at All Might, and All Might looked at him with a raised eyebrow. "How much you want to bet Sir Night-Eye will come to find us at the hospital and say some crap or something sooner or later?" Izuku said with a raised eyebrow as well, and All Might sighed and shrugged. 50-50 on him showing up or doing something in the coming months. "I really don't know nor care what he wants to do, because he is on thin ice on getting himself thrown in jail if he does start something," All Might said, and Izuku chuckled a bit but stopped since he was sure he had a cracked rib since it hurt to laugh. Soon they fell back into silence again, and Izuku fell asleep for a bit as he needed some rest due to all of the fighting. He though did feel All Might put an arm around his back and rub it as he told him to have a good sleep. Months had passed, and the students of UA were now living inside the dorms of the school, as UA wanted all of the students and staff to be located on campus, even though All for One was now defeated along with his bodyguard. The reason for this was due to the fact that Shigaraki and Kirigiri were still at large and presented a large risk towards UA due to the warping capabilities they had at their hands. During these months, some things had also changed, as the Hero Commission had awarded Raiden a full Pro Hero license in the aftermath of the battle, which they did for many reasons. With the fall of All Might, who had already announced his coming retirement, Raiden was a rising star, but the battle had popularized him greatly to the point that everyone was talking about Izuku on every news channel, social media, or anywhere you went. The government wanted people to keep feeling safe and secure, which meant allowing Raiden to be ranked officially and help stabilize the country would do wonders for Japan and the government. As such, the Hero Commission had made the announcement of him receiving his full hero license, which was well received and helped tame down some fears, since everyone saw the level of power Izuku had displayed during the battle, which was on par with All Might. Another reason was due to the fact that the commission was being pressured by the public themselves to award Raiden the license, which Izuku was fine with since it allowed him free movement and allowed Izuku to officially take over Might Tower's operation. Outside of all that, the students were preparing for the upcoming provisional license exams that would happen near the start of the second semester, which UA was preparing them for with some extra training they were doing on campus. While this was going on, Izuku was out about helping stabilize the crime rates that had started to increase due to the sudden retirement of All Might. Villains, even though they knew about Raiden, still wanted to test their luck since they didn't have a deep-rooted fear of Raiden like they had of All Might. As such, you could find Izuku rushing about cities across the entire Tokyo area of Japan as he came in like lightning, with the sound of thunder on his path as he knocked villains out cold and dropped them off to police left and right. However, after a few more weeks passed and the students of the first years had finished their provisional exams, Izuku was called in by Nezu to come to his office. For some reason, Izuku didn't like the feeling he was getting when Nezu called, since his voice sounded completely done with whatever had happened, which didn't mean well for Izuku. As it turns out, it didn't mean well at all, as he thought, as it appears that Sir Night-Eye was requesting him to join a mission, which he didn't give Nezu many details outside of it being a raid on a Yakuza group that was making a rise. As Izuku sat there, he groaned as he didn't know what he really wanted to do about this, since it would be good to hit organized crime in the roots as soon as possible before they can grow even stronger again, but he also didn't want to deal with Sir Night-Eye. "What do you suggest I do, Nezu?" Izuku asked as he sat there in the principal's office talking to the creature. Nezu just drank some of his tea while thinking it over. After a few minutes, Nezu suggested Izuku at least agree to meet about whatever the case was and decide if he wants to join it or not, since Izuku was currently doing a lot of patrols and some other cases already, so he did have an excuse to decline to join Sir Night-Eye if he really didn't want to work with the man. Izuku thought Nezu's answer over for a bit but nodded his head in the end. Why didn't he send it to Might Tower though, since that is where I officially take my casework through? Izuku thought out loud, and Nezu said it was likely due to the fact that the man still doesn't see Izuku as the ninth user and believes he doesn't have the right to control Might Tower. Another reason that Nezu provided was that Sir Night-Eye likely believed Izuku would have outright rejected it if it went via the agencies instead of Nezu. Do remember, he doesn't know that I and the others know of his crimes, Nezu said, which Izuku remembered that it was true that Sir Night-Eye didn't know. Though Izuku did wonder if Lemillion ever tried to get an answer from Sir Night-Eye on how he had helped Izuku grow like he did, which Nezu just shrugged since he didn't know. From what Nezu could see, Lemillion wasn't acting any different on campus from what he could see. The meeting came to an end, and Nezu sent a reply back to Sir Night-Eye that said Raiden agreed to an initial meeting to talk about the case and if he would join or not. Nezu did also put a small message in the email that Sir Night-Eye should forward new cases to Might Tower, which is where Raiden operated out of moving forward. Izuku grinned when he saw that in the email and wondered if the man actually would do it, but Izuku couldn't care right now since he wanted to just go out and patrol again, since he enjoyed making people smile. Though fate seems to have an interesting way of making things happen, as one day Izuku was out on a random patrol when he discovered a unique situation going on. Izuku knew that the first years had started their work studies already, and quite a few people in Wano had gained a work study with different pro heroes. For example, Kirishimiya was with Fat Gum or Asui, and Uraraka was with the number 9 pro hero Ryukyu, the dragon hero. But that is diverging from the point, as Izuku was up in the air watching a situation unfold as the work-study student Lemillion was with a little girl in his arms standing in front of some man who Izuku didn't recognize. Izuku decided to move to the top of the roof so he could hear the conversation that was going on, and he was glad he did that as he could hear the girl beg Lemillion to not let her go, but sadly he did, as the man who claimed to be the girl's father started to remove a glove off his hand, which seemed to scare the girl as she changed her mind and returned to the man. His quirk must have something to do with 5-point touch or touch via the hands, Izuku thought as he listened into the conversation even more. The man thanked the hero for returning his daughter and turned around to leave the alley, which Izuku silently followed behind as he made some of his fog move across the rooftop with him listening into the man since he could see and hear out of the mist quirk. What Izuku heard disturbed him greatly as the man promised to punish the girl for leaving the compound, which made her cry. This girl isn't his daughter most likely. Those bandages and clothing look like she was from a hospital room or something, as if someone didn't want her to have proper clothing since it would be too much of a hassle. Izuku thought since there wasn't a hospital for miles near their location. Izuku decided to just keep following the man and girl since he had his doubts about this man and the situation with the girl. There goes me meeting Sir Nidai on time. Might as well piss him off since he already hates me, Izuku thought as he just kept watch on the man and prepared himself to act if need be. After about 8 minutes of walking, they arrived at a home where the man entered with the girl, and Izuku just followed along as he sent his mist through the thicker parts of the grass to keep close to them. Thank you, hero laws, Izuku thought as he was legally allowed to enter the home if he had suspicions of a crime going on or someone being in present danger, which he did have such a theory since the girl shouldn't have been dressed like that to be walking out and about the city, and Izuku could see it in her eyes that she was terrified. As Izuku kept his mist to a bare minimum, he continued to follow the man by changing the position of where his little amount of mist he needed to hide his body was located from the ground to the ceiling, and so far as he kept changing locations. Soon Izuku found something interesting as the man with the girl entered an underground section that was hidden away. That likely isn't on any blueprints. What are you hiding? Izuku thought as the past users warned him to be careful, which he heeded since danger sense was triggering off the man as a threat to his life, which wasn't an easy thing to do without actively aiming for Izuku's life. Just passively triggering the quirk said a lot about the man himself. With a bit more following and some very damn close calls, Izuku saw the man come to a stop at a room that had a few guards at it as they opened the door and entered with the main individual, but Izuku noticed that every single person in the compound wore plague doctor masks that looked like bird parts a bit. Shows uniformity, so this place is organized. An organized criminal group most likely. Izuku thought as he made his way into the room to find out it was a lab, which made him pale as he realized the man had brought the girl into the room, which concerned him on why a little girl was going to be in the room. Looking around the room, he found where the girl was and he froze at what he witnessed happen. The man took his glove off and placed it on the little girl who had been strapped to the table, and she exploded into a bloody mess. Izuku wanted to throw up. He wanted to pass out. He wanted to cry. He wanted to do many things, but most importantly, he wanted to murder the man in front of him for killing the child without even blinking. However, the PAT users stoked his blind rage as they calmed him down and told him to look again, which he did as he calmed down and he saw the girl reforming, which confused him on how that was possible. Then the man in front of the girl, who Izuku assumed was the boss of the place due to the respect the others gave him, spoke to the girl. Now, am I going to have to do that again, Eri? Or are you going to be a good girl? You almost got me caught by the heroes, Eri, and that is bad since you are a curse. You know that is right, don't you, Eri? You are only a curse that will help me save this world from the disease called quirks. So be good and don't try to escape again, or else I will do this again and again until you learn your lesson. The man said as he looked at a man near him and told him to take Eri to her room. The man bowed his head and confirmed the order as he called the main individual overhaul, which Izuku didn't recognize the name of off the top of his head, but it felt familiar. However, that didn't matter to Izuku in the end because he was going to get the girl out of this place if it was the last thing he did, which required taking this organization down since he already had them for several crimes of murder, abuse, and other things, even if the man was her father. Izuku quickly followed after the new individual with Eri and stalked them to the girl's room and slipped into it with being seen. As the man put the girl in the room, he gripped her hair a bit and told her not to run away again since she would get them killed since the last guy died due to her running away on his watch. Another murder charge, Izuku thought as he waited for the man to leave the room. After confirming he exited the room and was away from the doors a bit, Izuku came out of the mist, and Eri was freaked out, but Izuku raised his hands. It's okay, sweetie. I am here to save you, okay? I know what the man had just done to you and I am going to get you out of here and away from him, so can I come near you? Izuku said and asked calmly in a low tone to not alert any guards passing. Eri was scared, but she slowly nodded her head as he came to her and hugged her. It's going to be all right, I promise you. Why? Because I am here, Izuku said, and she asked what his name was in a scared tone, but he gave it to her. I am Raiden. Now Eri, can you tell me if that man named Overhaul is actually your father? Izuku asked, and she looked at him, and after a few seconds, she shook her head no. Do you know what happened to your parents? He asked, and she said she made them go away with her curse, which confused Izuku but also confirmed that Overhaul wasn't her parent, which meant he lied about it to Limilin. More charges just added upon the man, which Izuku was glad about. Izuku told her to just stay there as he pulled his phone out. Izuku knew who he was going to call, and it wasn't Sir Nidai, even though he should be meeting with the said man right now. Izuku didn't trust that man one bit with children like Eri due to his own experiences with Sir Nidai at a young age. After a few rings, the phone call connected and the voice on the other side came out as Principal Nezu. "Raiden, aren't you meant to be in a meeting with Sir Night-Eye?" Nezu asked, and Izuku chuckled. "Yeah, I stood him up as I have an activate issue going on. I have to be quick, but I am deep inside of a villain underground lair with a child that needs to be saved. They are experimenting on her from what I can tell since there is a lab here and she has scars that seem to be from medical devices. I need reinforcement since I can't just miss my way out of here with another passenger, which means I have to fight my way out, but all of these people need to be arrested as well and processed," Izuku said, and Nezu was silent for a few moments but spoke out that he will start putting a team together quickly and get the police involved, which Izuku was thankful for. "Nezu, it might be good for Eraserhead, Cementos, and Ectoplasm to join us. The underground lair seems to be mostly concrete, which Cementos can use to his advantage, and maybe create an escape route for me and the girl so I can get her away from the battle before returning. Ectoplasm would be good to use against a villain, which is the boss called Overhaul, who quirk seems to be touched activated as he can destroy and undo things. He's done it once on the girl, so a murder charge he already racks up since he did kill her before bringing her back. Eraserhead would also be good to stop his quirk or others as well, but we may need him to stop her quirk since I don't know what it is clearly, but somehow Overhaul wants to use it for whatever he is doing," Izuku said as he rambled off facts and information for Nezu to use, though he did get shocked to learn that Overhaul was the case that Sir Night-Eye wanted to talk to him about. "Raiden, the man known as Overhaul is the villain that Sir Night-Eye is looking into right now. He is going to be pissed when he finds out about this, which is so funny in my eyes," Nezu said as he could hear rapid clicking of a keyboard and other voices in the room which sounded like Eraserhead. Izuku just rolled his eyes but just spoke quickly again. "Oh well, but it might be best not to inform him since he would likely try to delay the raid on this place, even though we have evidence to arrest them all just on the few things I've seen, since the people here clearly know what he is doing to the girl, as he has had people in the room when he used his quirk on her when I was there," Izuku said, and Nezu agreed since it would be annoying to deal with Overhaul at the moment. As such, Nezu said he would text him in a bit when he was ready with the raid team and police so Izuku would know when it was going on, so he just needed to stay hidden in the base for now. With that, I hope you enjoyed the video. And see you next time. Bye bye.